This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, showtime. Um, it is 6 o'clock. The meeting of the Rome City Council will come to order. This is July 14th, 2022. And we'll start off with our invocation. I believe that's Pastor Jeremy. No, Pastor Van Zant. Are you going to do our invocation? Okay, very good. Thank you so much, sir.
Let's pray. Dear the Father, I thank you for this day and I thank you for this opportunity that we have to come and meet and discuss the matters of the city. Lord, I pray that you'll please just give us divine understanding and allow us to represent the city of Rome in the best way possibly. Lord, I pray that you'll please just be with our first responders, and I pray that you'll continue to put a hedge of protection around them, especially during this heat wave that we're going through. And Lord, I pray that you'll please just allow us to think about what's best for the city of Rome, and just allow the city council members and also the mayor to think what's best for the tenants of Rome. We're so thankful for government and the way that you've instilled it into our communities. And Lord, we pray and ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, and we got announcements. Touch a Truck event at the Rome Family Park, July the 18th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Oh, okay. I jumped the gun there, so let's go to public comments. Public presentation. Ms. Odom?
The first one we have is from Lisa Ann Wilson. It says,
Okay. All right. Uh, the council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, a council member or mayor may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, and/or may propose that the item be placed on a future agenda item or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. If you are attending the meeting live via live streaming and you would like to make a public comment, you must email the city secretary at citysecretary@cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and must identify each subject you plan to present to be recognized. If the writer of a public comment wants someone to read the letter, it will only be read by the city secretary and must be emailed prior, email above, to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Public comments made in person require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting, and the form must identify each subject the speaker plans to present. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individuals shall be cause for termination of time privileges and removal from council chambers.
why is the city not protecting citizens from the seismic survey Dawson is pushing forward? citizens to sign up, and that is truly harassment. Was this not voted down by council? And if so, why is this back on the agenda? Why have they not been why have they not been given a citation for soliciting? Citizens from Old Town and Ellis spoke loudly and boldly that they do not want this and had valid points, i.e., tearing up our streets, loud noises, and other unknown factors. Why did staff not listen? Touch a Truck is a national event, and congrats to whoever started this. Kids are curious by nature, and this will provide a learning experience for them and let them have fun. Doesn't every city event need approval by the council? Was this approved by the council or just pushed ahead? Hopefully all permit fees, insurance, and inspections are in order. Citizens have asked for more park events like the ones held years ago. Hopefully the Parks Committee will listen and get events planned year-round, especially for families with children. Legal fees is on the agenda tonight. We need to be careful with legal fees. Remember, Texas Municipal League provides free advice on legal matters. Take advantage of that when possible. Staff and elected officials can also take advantage of TML assistance. Is it time to renew our legal contract? Open records. Citizens have a right to ask for anything they want regarding information they are curious about. In my opinion, this is a way to help our staff and elected officials be accountable for their day-to-day actions. I feel in a way it is like our First Amendment rights. It is a way for citizens to request records as allowed by law. It is not a negative but a positive for our citizens to care. Public input comments are made by private citizens addressing staff and council with their opinions or suggestions. These folks spend a lot of time gathering factual information to present. However, I feel these comments often go unheard. I feel that elected officials should be able to go back and review comments maintained in some sort of public record, YouTube. In my opinion, great ideas by folks should be available for review and put into action as appropriate. Thank you for your time. Lisa Ann Wilson, 240 West First Street. And next we have Tim Robinson.
My presentation, that's just a little scenario. It's called Saturday Morning Drive. On July the 2nd, 2022, approximately between 10:45 to 10:50, I was traveling southbound headed to Fort Worth, and suddenly I noticed an extra flash police car come flying past me doing pretty good rate of speed headed south. Well, I wondered, what was the wrong police car going in such a hurry? I wonder what they were going so fast. Well, I kept eye contact with the car. The car driver exited 5 Points and turned into Avondale Haslett Road in Tarrant County and headed to the east. Well, I followed behind this individual into the Walmart parking lot and observed this person getting out of the car and walking into Walmart. I have all my photos right here in hand. They were documented by time date. 13 minutes later, this individual walked out of the store with 3 bags of groceries in her hand.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
We have Robert Coleman.
We cannot hear audio. We cannot hear audio.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Next, we have Deborah Beecraft.
Good evening. I'm Deborah Beecraft. I live at 360 West 2nd. I wanted to say thank you to the council and staff for listening to the citizens and denying the permit for the seismic people to come in and tear up our roads. I just hope I notice they're back on the agenda, and I hope you keep listening to the citizens and don't reverse your decision. Maybe we should have an ordinance that prohibits all large vehicles on residential streets unless they have a permit from the city. That way the city could control big trucks and the traffic that's coming down our residential streets. So y'all might want to think about that. Thank you.
Concludes our public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Odom.
Excuse me.
Whoops.
We have the right to correct some information, and I would like to correct part of what was read by Lisa Wilson when she was talking about that the city had taken action and about the seismic company. The action that we took was that we denied them the right to use the city's roads and the city's easements. We took no action to interfere with their negotiation with individual property owners. So they have the right to go knock on your door, give you a phone call, send you an email, whatever it is to try to accomplish whatever that is. The city, there is no ordinance that denies them the right to do that. And so the action that we
Soliciting,
took that night was relative to roads and easements. And I just want to clarify that.
soliciting, door to door soliciting.
Thank you, Mrs. Priest. Okay. Announcements from mayor and council. Again, Touch a Truck event, the Rhome Family Park, July the 18th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then also City Council meeting, July 28th, 2022, at 6 p.m. And we'll go right into the consent agenda. A are going to be the minutes of City Council regular session dated June 9th, 2022, and the minutes of City Council regular session dated June the 23rd, 2022. Do I hear a motion? Okay. All in favor? I should have mentioned, I guess I was told that apparently Josh McCabe and Michelle Ty won't be here this evening. And then monthly staff reports, departments, administration, building development, fire rescue, municipal court, police and public works. And I guess we'll start with administration. Yes.
Well, if there's no questions from anybody, we do have the police chief that has a presentation that he's
Okay.
going to do under this item.
All right. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I just wanted to introduce tonight Pastor Heath Van Zant. He did give our invocation this evening, but I am excited to announce that we have partnered together. He and I have been discussing for several months about a chaplain program for our police department. A chaplain program gives us just somebody to rely on. The officers get to know, rely on a man of faith that can help them through difficult situations. He will ride out with us, allow us to lean on him as well as provide his guidance to us in spiritual matters, and also to just prop us up when we need that little help. And he also can assist us with death notifications and situations that might require a man of faith that might help. I'd also like to have his wife come up, and so he can introduce her since she's sitting back there in her beautiful hat. So I give you our police chaplain, Pastor Heath Van Zant.
Very good.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, City Council, for having us. This is my wife, Carissa. We have been married for 5 years. We have 2 beautiful children. Both of our kids have cystic fibrosis, and so it's a thing that the Lord has given us to handle, and we're so thankful for it because we've been able to talk to people and just help individuals that go through difficult circumstances in life. But I'm really looking forward to working with the police department and just assisting however I can. I've been Chief hasn't been too happy with me in a sense, just because I continue to take them goods that contain sugar, but trying to do whatever I can to help them out and just to get them through their night shift and then their daily responsibilities. And so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of being able to assist the city of Rome as well, and just be able to be a lighthouse to the community. And I'm the pastor at Antioch Baptist Church. We're just right off of the main street, and you see us quite often as you drive through on Main Street. Like I said, this is my wife, Carissa Van Zant, and super thankful for her. And I definitely am part of the Married Up Club. So
Very good. Thank you, Pastor. Next up is public hearing D. City Council to conduct a public hearing to consider a replat of 2 tracts of land, 1 tract being legally described as acres 3.600, abstract A-634, MEP and PRR, and is located on the southeast corner of US Highway 287 northbound Service Road and BC Rome, and one tract of land being legally described as acres 1.253, Lot 1, Block 1, subdivision Taco Casa, Rome Edition, abstract A-8634, MEP and PRR, just west of Taco Casa, located at 201 School Road, Rome, Texas 76078. I got an email from the city administrator on Monday, but I believe she can explain it better than I can.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:20. And we're going to immediately go into recess. We were still waiting on information from the developer. And when we go into recess, it will be recessed until the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear it August 1st. And it will come back to council August 11th, 2022 for them to hear. It'll be 6 p.m. For August 1st at P&Z, and then 6 p.m. at the council meeting on the 11th.
That concludes the segment on the public hearing. 621. Okay. Regular agenda, new business. E, discussion any necessary action regarding a request of two tracts of land, one tract being legally described as acres 3.600, abstract A-634, MEP and PRR, and is located on the southeast corner of US Highway 287 northbound, Service Road and BC Rome, and one tract of land being legally described as acres 1.253, Lot 1, Block 1, subdivision Taco Casa, Rome Edition, abstract A-634, MEP and PRR, just west of Taco Casa, located at 201 School Road, Rome, Texas 76078. And I guess same thing? Same. Okay. Very good. No action on that one. Okay. Discussion any necessary action regarding a recommendation from Planning and Zoning regarding a site plan for a new residential home legally described as being legal acres 0.161, Lot 1R, Block 2, BC Rome Edition, also known as 298 East Aurora Street, Rome, Texas 76078.
Mayor and Council, this is, if you remember, on April 4th, the P&Z made a recommendation to approve the replat, and Council approved the replat on April 14th. And then after the replat, the gentleman came back for a site plan on one piece of property, which P&Z and Council approved. And so this is that second site plan on that replat. Council met this past Monday night, and they did make a recommendation for approval to the council.
You said council or P&Z? You said council.
P&Z made a
Okay.
recommendation for council approval.
Okay. All right. Do we hear a motion to approve this site plan?
It is turned on. Motion for the approval of the site.
Okay. Do I hear a second? And all in favor?
Aye.
3 ayes. Very good. Okay. Discussion, update, and any necessary action regarding water, wastewater, revenue bond, and review water rate. Recommendations by consultant.
So, Mayor and Council, we do have Kyle Weldon here from Kimley and Horn, and he is going to give you all a presentation on this. Yeah, she's pulling them up. Just hide that bar bottom. It's on the other.
We're working now. There we go. Okay. Like Cynthia mentioned, my name is Kyle Weldon. I'm with Kinley Horn and Associates, and we're the city's consulting engineering firm. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about something you've heard a little bit about in the past, the water and wastewater revenue bond, and the debt update associated with that. So we're going to talk about a couple of things with this. You'll find in your packet some history of where that bond has been in the past. We're not going to rehash all of that tonight because a lot of things have changed since then. But most of you should be familiar with it. You've had several updates regarding it in the past. And if you'll remember, we submitted to get special funding and we were denied that. And so now we're moving forward with the next step on going after a revenue bond to take care of some of the projects that are critical to the city and need funding immediately. So going through that, tonight I want to talk about a couple of projects, and really the first one that's really important is the West Wastewater Treatment Plant improvements. As many of you know, there's been some issues at the West Wastewater Treatment Plant over the past couple of years, and some of those are so critical that you've gotten several TCEQ violations associated with those as well. And so it's really at a point where those items need to be addressed. Otherwise, TCEQ will force you to address them, which is not really the best way to move forward with it. So we've packaged things in several different ways. So you've got the West Wastewater Treatment Plant improvements, and what we've done is we've looked at what the bare minimum requirements you need to improve that treatment plant are, and those are going to be your TCEQ minimum requirements. We've also, with the help of the previous Public Works Director and city staff, talked through some things that would not only address the TCEQ minimum requirements, but also some operational efficiencies that would just really help improve the way that the plant operates and give it more longevity. They're upgrades that probably should have been done in the past, but have been put off, and so it would be a good time to go ahead and do those as well if you're able to. And then the other project items that we've got on here are the West Wastewater I&I improvements. And for those of you that don't know, I&I is inflow and infiltration. And basically that's talking about water that is not wastewater that ends up going through your wastewater treatment plant. So it either gets in through manholes, broken pipes, people who have direct storm connections to your sewer lines, things of that nature. And so the West Wastewater Treatment Plant has quite a bit of I&I issues. That's what causes a lot of the peak hour overflows that you're seeing during small or large rain events. And so you could really prolong the life of that wastewater treatment plant without expanding it by reducing some of the I&I that you're experiencing. And the primary way of doing that is replacing sewer lines. And then the last item you've got here are some water improvements that are they're critical from a water standpoint, but probably less critical from the wastewater standpoint. And so that's to correct some disinfection booster issues that you're having at your 3433 pump station, specifically with your chlorine levels in your water tank. You've got multiple ground storage tanks throughout the city at each of your different well sites, and so those have aged significantly and they need some improvements. Some of them may actually be more beneficial just to replace, but so we've got that packaged in here. And then we've also got the water well disinfection conversion, which is talking about the two different types of ways that you can treat your water with chlorine and making that more consistent. So what we've done, and there's backup in your council packet tonight that goes through where all this pricing came from, but we've packaged it into three primary options. So you've got your TCEQ minimum improvements for the West Wastewater Treatment Plant, and that's at $1.58 million. If we were to do the TCEQ minimum plus some operational efficiencies, you're sitting at about $3.84 million. And then if we were to do all of the items with the wastewater improvements at the treatment plant plus the I&I and the water improvements, you're sitting at about 5.9 million. So what we've done is we've worked with multiple consultants. So Nugent Strategies, who helped us pull together the water and wastewater rate studies, and also a financial advisor who's helped us look at some of the bond coverages. And we've talked about where we're at and what needs to be done in order to fund the debt. So if you'll remember, last year in September 2021, Council approved a wastewater rate increase. And at that time, what was discussed was that we would only focus on the wastewater rates because that was the most critical and needed to be addressed immediately. With the goal being that the water rates, we'd come back and look at those again in September of 2022, knowing that long-term, both the water and the wastewater rates would need to be increased. So at that time, we held off on increasing those rates, and now we're at the next point where we need to start discussing the water rate increases as we're talking about funding and the debt coverage associated with the critical improvements that you have that need to be done right now. And so this slide is one that I did want to hit on. This was a previous slide that Cynthia has provided to you in the past. It's a little hard to read up here, but the important thing about this is this looks at the amount of money that Rhome has invested in your water and wastewater infrastructure over the past 32 years. And those numbers are they're additive. So that 6.15 million that we've got in 2022 is the amount that has been paid for water and wastewater improvements to date since 1990.
Well, actually, no, that I put that on there. That represented the revenue bond that council approved, the 5.8,
Okay.
and then I put 6.1 because of the price increases. So it's
Gotcha.
just what 1991.
Okay.
I can't read it from here, but
Yeah,
that
90,
second one.
91, 2000, 2019.
Yes.
And then 2022, looking at
hasn't
what,
happened yet.
which hasn't happened. Okay, perfect. So if you'll notice, one of the big trends here is outside of the East wastewater treatment plant improvements that you did in 2019, there's been no substantial amount of money spent on your water and wastewater infrastructure since 2000. And so that's a big issue for the city in general, just because if you're not continually maintaining your system, then essentially what happens is you get to a certain point and the useful life is at its end, and you either have to do a full replacement or the replacements that you have to do are much more substantial. As you'll also know, we've experienced quite a bit of cost increases in both the water and wastewater industry over the past 2 years. And a lot of that's had to do with supply shortages, cost of labor, and just general increases that are going on around in the economy right now. So what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, specifically out of all of this, is what rate increases we may be considering as we're talking about our ability to service debt. So as you know, if we take on a revenue bond, we have to be able to cover that debt, and there's a certain amount that rates would need to increase as a minimum in order to help cover that. So what we've got here are 3 different options, and what we've done is option 1 is the bare minimum TCQ requirements to cover the west wastewater treatment plant improvements. Option 2 is the west wastewater treatment plants with some operational efficiencies, and then option 3 is everything. And what you'll notice is there's various percent increases on there, and those are percent increases to the specific water rates. So I've provided what your current residential rate is, and then what a proposed rate would be for both your average residential and your average commercial. So for instance, if we were to look at option 1, you would expect to see somewhere around a $6 a month rate increase for an average $5,000 gallon bill for a 5/8 inch residential meter. I'm not going to go through each of these, but this generally give you a breakdown of what those increases would look like. And then what we've also done, and we've talked about this in the past, and this is something that New Gen Strategies, the rate consultant that we had kind of gone through with you. So we typically do comparisons to other cities, and we do that on both a residential and a commercial basis. And obviously, you've got to look at these for the different billing types. So since your average is around 5,000 gallons, we've looked at a comparison to other cities. And this kind of breaks out where you would be compared to other cities with options 3, 2, and 1. This includes both your water and sewer rates in here. And one of the important things to remember about these comparison graphs is that no two cities are the same. So while we feel very comfortable comparing ourselves to others because it gives us a basis point of where we are, it is impossible to say that the way that our system is set up is exactly the same as, say, Springtown's, for example, or Boyd's or Bridgeport's. So these are really just touch points, but ultimately you are in the situation you are in based on the system you have and the needs of that system. So it's, you know, it's always nice to get a good feel for where you're at, but it's important to remember that you are not the same as those other systems are. So if we were to go with option 2 or 3, in this scenario, you would have some of the higher rates compared to other cities that we've looked at. If you were to go with option 1, then Springtown's rates would still be higher for a residential meter. And then we did the same thing for a commercial meter. And in this case, your current rates are already higher than all of your commercial comparable cities. And so it doesn't matter what option you go with, you would still be higher. So these, I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken tonight, correct?
This is information for the council to consider, but we're in budget season, so these are some of the decisions that you guys are going to need to weigh in the budget process. So, but if there's questions, I mean, no, I mean, feel free to ask.
So is this discussion mostly about the water rate increase? Or are we also re-examining the wastewater situation?
Because of, so yeah, let me just boil it down. You guys authorized, it's partly both, okay? You guys authorized a revenue bond for 5.9. And what we're telling you is because when we did that, when the consultant looked at that, it was a different economy. So because of, we did not get a low interest rate loan through Texas Water Development Board, because of the supply chain issues, because of the double-digit inflation and the interest rates that are going up, all of those increased enough for us not to be able to do that bond, the 5.9. We have to repackage it. And that's if you remember in your backup information that I've been talking about since the budget workshop, we were trying to repackage it. We knew we were going to have to probably repackage it into maybe 2 phases. And so this is coming back to you and letting you know, here's some options for how to repackage it. But in looking at the numbers again and coming back, the water rate increase was something that was talked about last year. And so that's going to have to be an option on the table to be able to fund these packages.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
So this water rate increase is on top of the wastewater increase we had last year?
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, my water bill, I live in my own house. I'm just me. My daughter occasionally comes over. My water bill is $79. So with this, how much more is it going to go up? For a $79 water bill that I don't even exceed, well, I don't exceed my water limit.
Yeah, so how much it goes up would be a function of how much debt the city's willing to take on in terms of your improvements. And so that's kind of why we laid out the three different options. But say option one, you could expect to see around a 10% increase. So that's about $7 a month. And then I think option two was around a 30%, and option three was around a 48.5%.
I think it's important to remember the budget is broken up into two funds. We've got the general fund, and that primarily the revenue that supports the general fund is property tax and sales tax. And then there's, fines and fees, there's some other things. And that's general fund. The water wastewater is a separate fund. It's called an enterprise fund. And so those revenues that pay for that system and that fund, it operates like a business. So it needs to cover the maintenance, operation, and expansion of the system. And that's why we've shown you this chart here, because we just haven't been keeping pace. The last two water rate increases, one was in 2016 and one was in 2017. And that was a pass-through cost. So we have well water, and then we buy water from Walnut Creek. That water from Walnut Creek is extremely expensive, number one. And that's why we've been trying to use more of our well water. That's why we're trying to bring well 6 back online, because it's cheaper to use the well water than Walnut Creek water. However, when we did the rate increase, all that rate increase covered was what Walnut Creek charged us. It wasn't maintenance, it wasn't operations, and it wasn't any expansion to the system.
So the money between that, obviously the city collected from 2001 and 2018 on water bills, was that just maintenance for wastewater plants?
Well, not even maintenance, because we're not keeping up with maintenance.
That was primarily water increases that came to us that we have to pay somebody else for, because we're buying water from. Well, I'm glad that we have a chance to think this through. I find it depressing to have to discuss this as much as we have, and it affects every person that's in this town, me included. And so I can see, I hear words that the city council is gouging people. Well, that's pretty unfair. This is something that we have to do, whether it's our sewer or wastewater. I'm sorry, that's the
Excuse
word.
me, what?
Wastewater or water. These are primary health and safety issues, as well as we have to have them. We have to have water to live. And so it's a kind of a critical situation, and we need to stop pretending like it's not critical. Do I think that COVID has waylaid the world? Yes, I do. Do I think that it's tragic for
Stop
everybody
hiding
that's
behind
involved?
it.
Absolutely, I do. So I don't know about you guys, but I think I need to look at this and weigh this a little better. I think I need to pray about it a little bit, to be truthful with you about it, because it's so out of our ability to control it. And it's just a sad situation that we're in. And you've heard me say many times that we can spend all day blaming people that were on the city council and staff and all kinds of stuff for what didn't happen in the past as far as maintenance or infrastructure. But that serves no purpose at all, none at all. What we need to do is look at where our situation is today and what is it that we have to do for our city to have water, to have sewer, to stop paying huge fines to the state, and it is a health and safety issue. And that's why the state is looking at us, is because it's health and safety. And that's a scary thing for us to think that they're going to come knock on our door if we don't be proactive. So,
Well, and to be very clear about that, your previous public works director did a good job of holding some of those things off, but there will be a time where you will not be given a choice and those improvements will have to happen. The TCQ will come in and mandate that at some point, and you will be forced to figure them out. So it's better to be proactive and be prepared for it than it is to let the state come and tell you when you got to do it. So.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, these are, it's really not optional. It's required by state statute that we have to do this. And I'm going to, point to a recent issue that we had in Ellis Homestead. I mean, that was a water main line break. We had another one, if you remember, emergency expenditure that was close to 50,000. We don't know how much this is going to cost, this one in Ellis, with 9 affected residents. I mean, I'm sorry for those 9 affected residents, but it could have been 1,200 affected residents. And that's the state of our system. We had one that was 50,000 earlier this year, a sewer, and now we've got a water line. And I just fear that these are going to continue because, again, we haven't invested into our system. Now, I will remind you that with the East wastewater treatment plant, we have, and I will be bringing you a report on that, we have an extra, because that bid came in, those are when the prices were lower and interest rates were lower, those were the days. So it was estimated to be $2.6 million, and that bid actually came in at like 1.8, and it ended up being 1.9 with some change orders. So basically, after the design, we have about 300,000 that you guys have talked about. Okay, we want to put that into the pipes that lead to the East wastewater treatment plant and replace some of those pipes. But 300,000, I mean, I don't know if you can speak to how far that will go to replace pipes.
Not very far.
Huh? No, I said I'd bring a report back. And those are the clay, we still have clay pipes in the city of Rome.
Rough budget purposes for a 6 to 8 inch sanitary sewer line, when you take into account all the other things that have to come along with it, you're probably looking at somewhere between $80 to $100 a linear foot. So if you did the math on that, you're probably around maybe 3,000 linear feet, something like that, of replaced pipe.
I've asked for a breakdown of it was actually 5.281 million, I thought, that was approved last year. And I'd asked for a breakdown of what the actual costs were in each thing. So I'm wondering if we can get a breakdown of that, and perhaps
It is in your packet, just so you know, it is in your packet.
Okay. The impact of those sewage increases has been devastating for some of our businesses. And, I think they've been pretty vocal about it. It's also been devastating to people on a fixed income. And when it was passed, we understood, it'd be an increase $30.54, but it ended up being a lot more, for residents.
That's because rates are based on your usage as well,
Yes,
so they're tied back to your water usage. So
but
the more
I'm just
you use,
wondering,
the more your bill.
if we can break it down where, say over a 5-year period of time, and okay, so this needs to be done. Okay, let's prioritize the things that need to be done to upgrade or improve the facility, and just do, try to save money out of our budget to do a little bit each year to address these issues.
Yes, so we've broken that down, and that minimum 1.58 million is what you have to do. So that is the minimum to meet the TCQ requirements based on the violations that you have gotten over the past 2 years.
Okay. And is there no possibility of getting a grant for any of this?
I don't believe so.
I know at one point when Mrs. Wilson was mayor, she had kind of thought that grant that she wanted to apply for would have been applied, but based on the income ratio and everything, they said it couldn't be used.
Mm-hmm.
because of where the West Side treatment plant is, um, based on the income. So is that not a possibility? I'm just trying to alleviate or, minimize the impact.
Yeah.
People are hurting right now. I mean, you got gas that's so high, and I saw yet today it was 9.1 on our inflation, but I think it's really closer to 12 to 14%. So what? Quick. Okay. Yeah.
At one point in time, the council had brought up or talked about average billing to be addressed or to be given to the citizens. And I know some people were not going to be able to take that advantagement, but most of the citizens would. And I think your businesses probably would have something to add to that as well. But nothing's been done with that. Maybe we can bring that back to the table.
Kyle, I don't know if you want to address that. Council did discuss that, and the consultant, Chris Eckert with NewGen, did address that. It's something that the council can consider. However, the bottom line, and this is how I remember that he described it, the easiest way to understand, but you need this amount of money, so you're going to get that amount of money. If you average it, some people are going to pay more, some people are going to pay less, but you have to have this amount of money. So some people's will go way up and some won't. Is that?
Yeah, that's the way that I remember it. So, I mean, basically, these increases were considered in order to meet a specific debt coverage based on the amount of debt that would be required to cover the infrastructure costs. So you still have to have the same debt coverage to cover that. So if you were to go to something like average billing, then the rates may end up being higher and someone pay more and someone pay less. But either way, you still have to cover that amount of money. So it's the same pot. It's just filled in a different way.
I'm okay if you want to make a comment about it. Let's just not get too distracted.
On 7 and 8, if you'll go to the slide on 7 and 8. If on 7 and 8, if you can add to, for the council members, which cities are getting Walnut Creek water and which cities are receiving Tarrant County. So you can see what the difference is, since the water is a little different. So if you can add that too.
Yeah, we can. However, I mean, like Kyle said, is that even if they're receiving Walnut Creek water, they may have a different system. We have 2 wastewater treatment plants, and other cities may just have 1. So, I mean, there's the system itself is also something that you have to look at. But we can do that. But I did want to just address, you do have in your packet, and just so you know, an explanation of it, the opinion of probable construction cost. So one is dated 2/2 of 22, and you have all the projects there that are listed out. These are the individual projects for the wastewater improvement. You've got a summary page, and then you've got the supporting detail page for each one. And then you have the same thing dated 7/11/2022. So you have a summary page, and then you've got the detail page that itemizes each project. So what that is actually supporting. So the projects are listed in your backup information.
So if we have questions as we are reviewing this, because I'm one of those spreadsheet people, and I spread it out and try to make good sense of it. And I had questions. Is that something I would call you, or okay? I just want to
Yeah,
know.
you just call me. If I can't answer the question, then I will get with the consultant.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would say, as is my practice, I mean, if I got a question from you on that, I would get the answer and then I would send it to everybody so you all have that information. Were there any other questions for Kyle tonight?
I think we're fine right now.
Thank you for y'all's time.
Thank you. So no action on that one. H, discussion and any necessary action regarding drainage project. This is City Administrator.
So Mayor and Council, you see in your backup information, we've been addressing a drainage issue along Mount Lane in the Ellis subdivision. Over the past several years, Rome has had to complete 2 road repair projects on Mount Lane, in part due to the drainage ditches from the top of the hill on Mount Lane, like 11, 12. It's actually north, but it flows downhill north. Down to the drainage channel, the creek bed that goes there. So I think what has happened over the years is that it's silted in, and so those ditches are shallower, and they overflow the ditches and they go onto the road and compromise the road. So we have, and this is before the Public Works Director left, we had the engineer out there and myself and the Public Works Director out there looking at this project to essentially reestablish that drainage channel along that side. It would be about $15,000. We are we are doing an interlocal with Wise County for basically a chip seal in Ellis, which is a road maintenance project. Again, the drainage ditches and roads go hand in hand. The drainage ditches keep the water off the road because the water is the enemy of the road. So a chip seal, what that does, it comes in and seals the top again to keep the water off. But unless we do something with that drainage, we're going to continue to spend money out there. So in 2020, if you remember, we spent about $57,000. And then in I believe it was 2019, it was before my time. And at that point in time, the research I've done, I think it was about 30,000. There was another project in the same area. And I think at that point it was about 30,000. So in a couple of years, we spent almost $100,000 in one area. So I think it would behoove us to spend, we do have the money in our street repair line item to try to resolve that drainage issue out there.
And with this $15,000, would that kind of prevent the other things that have been going on when you said we spend all that money with this?
It's going to go a long way to keep the water in the ditches instead of on the road, yes.
Just have a comment to make. Last November, Council approved an ordinance 2021-23 about the maintenance of easements and alleys, and specifically in section 2 of that ordinance, it says property subject to a drainage easement shall be maintained by property owner or adjacent property owner. And this was the ordinance that the council passed about, owners and homeowners and property owners being required to take care of these things. It just seems to me if we go to making an exception now to a past ordinance, there might be a can of worms here that we're opening.
Well, that ordinance is speaking about mowing, primarily mowing. It's not talking about drainage, redirecting drainage channels. It's not having every homeowner become an engineer and try to reestablish their drainage ditches because, again, that's one of the reasons why we have ditches. We have to maintain a positive flow for the benefit of the road. So that was not referring to drainage issues. And in
Okay,
fact, it comes in there, there's a section in there, it comes in there that says anytime it involves establishing positive drainage flow, then the city will step in. I mean, that's a city responsibility. Um,
Well, it says,
well,
on B, it says natural drainage ways shall be the responsibility of the owner or adjacent property owner to routinely maintain all creeks, streams, natural drainage ways on his property. And this shall include the removal of fallen tree limbs, underbrush, periodic rough mowing, removal of trash and debris, and general upkeep to maintain a positive flow of stormwater within the drainage way. So it indicates to me that it is the homeowner's responsibility. And then you go on to the next segment, bar ditches and culverts shall be the responsibility of the individual land owner or adjacent property owner. This shall include periodic removal of underbrush, periodic rough mowing, removal of trash and debris, general upkeep of the bar ditch or culvert to maintain a positive flow of stormwater within the bar ditch or culvert. Maintenance shall also include periodic cleaning of culverts to remove all sediment or other hindrances to the flow of water. Culverts shall be replaced by the owner should any structural failure in the culvert potentially impede the flow of stormwater. I'm just addressing what's in the ordinance.
I have not gotten my alley fixed. My alley has had a massive hole in the back. Well, it doesn't now because
You have fixed
of the
it
city
several
ordinance.
times.
I have fixed it myself. Spent my own money fixing an alley. So
With that alley, it seems like when they come around, it's not their fault. They come around on Sunday mornings, they open that fire hydrant, that water goes right down the street, and it goes into there, and then the next thing you know, there's people that use that alley, and you've got big old ruts again, and the mud is all over the street from it. So, if we're going to take care of this, then I think we need to take care of Patrick's alley.
okay.
I'm not sure what you're proposing if there's a legal person.
Well, she basically,
I'm
the
just
way
saying
she's
that,
reading this is that
we're-
she's saying
we're
that precludes us doing
proposing to
that.
spend money to fix this, whereas I'm looking at the ordinance, it says it's the responsibility of the property owner.
Yeah, I don't have that ordinance open up in front of me, but as I recall, that was intended for maintenance, mowing, and upkeep of the easement itself, as opposed to changing the flow of water or repairing major flow items. I mean, frankly, the city doesn't want, from a liability standpoint, to have someone else stepping in there and altering the flow of water that might damage our roads. I mean, it's the city's, in the city's best interest to maintain the ditches and the water flow. And if we've determined that it's water flow that's destroying the road, then that we need to step in and fix it.
It's very confusing then.
Well, Carmen, I mean, I think, I don't mind if you need to have time to review that ordinance. I mean, it is two separate issues. And if you want to review that and we can bring this back after you review it, I mean, that way.
I was here when we passed that ordinance, and that was not the intent, as I recall, of the council to require individual citizens to replace culverts or replace roadways or fix and repair anything like that. As I recall the discussion, we were talking about mowing and upkeep and keeping debris and whatnot out of the ditches. But I'll go back and look at it.
Well, and culverts would be, I mean, they are responsible for keeping the culverts clean, and if it gets sediment, as you read, they are responsible for cleaning out those culverts. Now, however, if you have a drainage channel in every development, and Kyle, you can probably speak to this better than me, you're the engineer, but in every development, there's a drainage plan that goes along with that development. And that drainage plan, basically, Texas law states it's zero runoff. So an engineer has to come in and design a drainage system for the development to meet that zero runoff and how they're going to accommodate the water that comes in here. And if I don't know when this subdivision was done, if it was checked or not, or if it's just silted in over the years. So the drainage is a function of keeping the water off the road. And the ordinance you're talking about was more about mowing rights of way and easement, drainage easements. Removing rocks or brush that impede the flow of water, but the drainage channel is a system. Kyle, do you want to speak to that, please? It's on the bottom.
There we go. Yeah, so one thing too to remember, or that would be important in considering this outside of whatever y'all decide the ordinance was based on, is that if in this specific case the water flows downhill down a drainage channel and then the city right-of-way ditch becomes a part of that channel as it heads back to a much larger creek. And so if you have issues where that water cannot flow, it's still going to come down and it pools on the road. And over time, what you will have is the road itself will begin to fail because the subgrade underneath of it is eroded. You don't want water sitting in your subgrade. It weakens the base, and then you have road failures. So one thing that you should think about is, okay, if I spend a little bit now to correct this issue, do I save a whole lot more in the future because I'm not also going to have to repair and redo the roads themselves? So I don't know that every situation would make the most sense for the city to come in and take a look at the specific drainage or making sure that the channels are being taken care of. But I can say when it comes to protecting the best interests of the citizens' money and your infrastructure that you own, you should be doing everything you can to protect what is coming onto the right-of-way and making sure that those are taken care of. So I don't know if that helps with some of the conversation as well.
Yeah, I was just, the drainage as a system, I mean, it works in concert. When you guys design a drainage ditch,
Yeah.
it's you designed it a certain way.
Yes.
Based on the calculation of the topography and the flow of the water on 100 or 500 year, flood.
Yeah, that's correct. So when a development comes in, when this one was originally done, the entire drainage, both offsite and onsite, was considered, and everything would have been sized according to the flows that you would expect coming from offsite, and then what you would increase on-site, and then you're either detaining or moving those through the channel accordingly. So just like when your neighbor to the south, I guess, Rolling V, comes in and puts in their subdivision, they're detaining and keeping flows to a minimum. They're held to those same standards and requirements. They can't force water onto someone else.
I mean, I'm okay to bring this back if Carvin needs time to look at.
I just happened to remember this ordinance, and it says maintenance shall also include periodic cleaning of culverts to remove all sediment and other hindrances to the flow of water. Culverts shall be replaced by the owner should any structural failure in the culvert potentially impede the flow of stormwater. And I'm presuming that that's what that drainage easement does, was control the flow of stormwater.
Well, again, let's let Carvin look at it and come back with an interpretation. That was not the intention from staff's perspective, I can tell you. Culverts, yes, are the responsibility of the homeowner to clean them out and to keep them free of debris so that the water can flow. But the drainage ditch as a system needs to work as a system. And if the culverts were sized wrong from the beginning, I don't know that they were actually on this project. I don't know. You were out there. I don't remember if we needed, there was actually any culverts that needed to be replaced. It was mainly just reestablishing the ditch to accommodate the water that flows down there and keep it off the road. Yeah, it was back in 2000 something.
So that's an item that's tabled at this point?
Yeah.
The next thing is discussion any necessary action regarding adoption of an ordinance similar to Boyd's mining ordinance. I'd like for that to include fracking, and I don't know if that maybe we don't need a full council in order to look at that ordinance. And I mean, it won't prevent everything, but I know when they had those, when Dawson was here before and they were contacting individual property owners, you know, the opposition, that at least the ones that came to council or spoke were, I mean, it was overwhelmingly, the opposition was overwhelming.
Mayor,
So-
I do have to jump in, and
Okay.
the state has preempted the cities from taking
I
any
saw that
action.
with
So
the
that
statute.
with fracking, there's really nothing that we can do. And for that matter, seismic studies, we can't do anything to bar that either.
Aren't they required to show that they do have the mineral rights if they're going to do that?
Well, that'd be up to the property owner themselves. It wouldn't be our responsibility. But as I read the statements in the literature that they had put out, they were telling folks they had the mineral rights. So if someone wants to challenge that, then they need to obviously check their own deed records. And if they disagree, then they can disagree. But if Bedrock has the mineral rights, then they have under Texas law the right to go on the property and do seismic studies, and we can't stop them. The legislature prevented us from doing that.
What you're saying is even if we passed an ordinance, it has no.
It's preempted. We wouldn't be able to enforce it.
Okay. All right, never mind. Okay, next one is J, item J, discussion regarding legal fees. That's been an ongoing concern of mine, that our legal fees are so expensive. And I was reminded of that shortly after I was elected by the city administrator. And I did, oh goodness, I had all my notes here. I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I did some looking around. I know that the city administrator did a chart for us showing what our legal fees had been for each category. And when I totaled up the amounts on the charts, it was $162,000 is what we've spent in the fiscal year. We've still got 3 months left. So I did some checking. Hazlitt, their legal fees were $65,000. Newark's legal fees, and I remember it right off the top of my head, $39,787. Boyd, less than $30,000. Justin, their legal fees were $40,000. And so it does seem that, you know, what I'm hoping is that, you know, maybe the city administrator can provide council members a copy of the itemized billings, that, you know, we can look at ways that we can cut some of our legal expenses. I noticed that Mr. Adkins' firm was also billing us for attendance at employee staff meetings. I don't know if that's customary and, you know, with other cities. But all I'm asking for is maybe the council can take a look at some of these itemized expenses, that we may be able to find a way that we can cut some of our legal expenses, because they are much higher than, well, it's kind of like our water rates. Everything's higher than other cities around us. Sure. We moved past fracking.
Just a moment ago, our attorney said that, no matter what, it's going to happen. It's where the state of Texas says that. But you have requested him to review the last ordinance and go over it again. Now, I could be wrong, but aren't you going to charge us for your time? So every time that we don't take his word as the attorney and one that has obviously studied this stuff prior, we're asking him to redo it and charge us again. I'm confused and I mean, it's not just today. I mean, it's not new, Mayor. It's just like we have done this over and over again on the meetings I've been at or seen. Well, so we go back to council, we go back to the attorney, and we look at it again, and he charges us again. And that's his right. He is an attorney, I mean, I have to go see a lawyer, and I know I'm going to have to pay. Hopefully I get everything done the first time, the right time, and then I listen to him. But I think we are doing a lot of our charges to ourselves.
That's why I'm asking council to take a look at the itemized list of expenses.
But I think that's just my opinion on what might help us to bring him down a little bit is to, when he says, okay, this is what the law says, have a little faith and believe it. So.
Thank you, Mrs. DeCarmo.
Well, I will point out in this chart, we'll go back and check the numbers you can see on the council meetings, I mean, where we're, on those categories where we're spending the money. We did make a change about a year or so ago where the attorney only attends one meeting a month in an effort to cut down and reduce cost. One of the councils, you can see there's contracts, there's general legal, open records request. Those are some of the, in ordinances and resolutions. I mean, these are legal documents. We've got to make sure that we're doing things legally, number one. Number two, I would say the development, most of that is covered by professional service agreements with Rolling V, QT, Sahihi, Prairie Point. But I just wanted you all to see a breakdown of what the categories are that we're spending money on.
Well, I think it would also be helpful if council could, if you'll provide the itemized lists for this year and at least for last year, and provide an itemized list of, where the legal fees are. And like I said, if we can come up with suggestions on how we can reduce some of that. Sorry, Mr. Adkins, I know it's your bread and butter, but in comparison to what other cities are spending, we're over the top. And I don't know. I know that in the past they don't like to be compared to Boyd, but Boyd does an awful lot of stuff right, and that's why sometimes I do compare some of our stuff to Boyd. And even with Justin's doing a lot right. They've got a population of 4,409, but city attorney is $40,000.
I have a question. If I could, is it all right? We do these comparisons, and it was pointed out earlier when we were talking about the water that, we have to look at what are the differences between our communities that we're doing those comparisons. And I don't think it's any surprise what I'm about to say, but the political climate in Rome has always been, as long as I retired and moved here and got on the city council before I ever knew that that was the case, but we do have a political climate that's testy. I'll just put it that way. And so I just was wondering, and maybe I need to direct this to Carbon, is do you think that the hostile climate that we have politically and that has boiled over in actually some of our employment situations, do you think that our legal costs have increased or stay high in relation to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I represent other cities, and where you have a unified political will, then you don't need to ask the lawyer if we can do this or is this legal to do this. You can generally proceed with a limited risk. Where you've got a contentious political climate, then both sides have to double check each other. And generally that means asking me to verify what the legal limits are on any question before you. So yes, it, it makes it more expensive to do business. I mean, I don't apologize. I mean, I love coming out and working with you guys, but when they first approached me and said this town of Rome up in Wise County wants, needs an attorney to come up there, I was told you guys met once a night or once a month, and it was about a 2-hour meeting, and it was pretty easy deal. But that's I think I might have been misled a little bit. So but it's okay. I mean, that's what I do. So I mean, I don't apologize. I've done what I've been asked to do. I've tried to give you all the best legal advice I can, and I am cognizant of the cost. It's expensive, but you as a city have had a lot of issues and projects over the last 2 or 3 years, and you've done them right for the most part. And that's just part of what we have to do. I mean, that's what any city has to do. So
Thank you.
it is what it is.
But if the administrator knows her
I
business,
was
she doesn't have
basically
to
throwing it
call.
out there to see if there wasn't a way that we could cut some of those costs. Again, I would ask the city administrator to forward. They're long and they're tedious on these legal expenses, but it'll give you all an idea of how we're spending this. I didn't expect any action this evening, so.
Could we also get a copy of where the monies that pay for these come from, like how much comes from the developers, those kinds of agreements? I show the expense, but I don't see the offset to that.
Okay. Well, when you get the itemized list, it will show, like this one right off the bat, Rome 58 Partners, Prairie Point. And then it shows how much was, this one in particular was in January, a total of $850. So when you get the itemized report, I would think on other things it would show that. And then it also, there's court expenses, and it'll, it identifies those. And, okay. All right, well, I just wanted to bring it up, bring it to everyone's attention. Okay, the last item on the agenda is K, discussion and any necessary action regarding Dawson Geophysical Company's second request.
Mayor and council, just like they are, Dawson is going back to homeowners where they have the mineral rights. They're coming back to the city. They made a general request. You guys denied it. Now they're coming back and asking again for a specific property where they own, Bedrock Energy owns the mineral rights. And they're asking permission. So, as Carvin has stated, has been stated in a couple of the meetings, state statute allows them access to get those mineral rights, but they are asking. So, the last known direction I have from you guys is a denial, so I can't process this. So if one of you gentlemen want to come up and talk to the council about what your request is so they can hear it directly from you.
Well, hopefully you guys realize that natural gas production brings in tax revenue. Hopefully it may pay for wastewater treatment stuff. So let's look on the positive side. What this is here, what we're presenting again tonight, thank y'all by the way, is there's a 10-acre tract of land owned by the city of Rome. Bedrock Energy, the client on this project, does have the mineral leasehold underneath that tract of land. As Garvin said, that grants us the rights to explore for minerals. 99% of the time, a leasehold underneath the tract of land gives you that right. There are sometimes very like half a 1% chance that you cannot run seismic, but that's another totally different deal. This tract of land, 10 acres here east of town, is underneath leasehold.
Just so they know, it's the Prairie Point 10 acres park.
Is that the part that they traded off with the one over here by the?
It's off of Hickory, 10 acres.
It was done under the original Rome 58 where they traded the 10 acres for the 10 acres?
Yes.
I see.
So what we're presenting tonight is only this 10-acre tract of land that does have leasehold. The other stuff that we presented before in the past that was owned by the city of Rome, we do not have leasehold positions. So with the denial on that, we cannot go. It's just on this 10-acre tract that by law we have rights to conduct seismic on it. No, sir. No, sir. We're asking consent to utilize to actually access that 10-acre tract of land while we're doing seismic.
How are you going to get to it? Because it doesn't show there's a street. When I pulled it up on the appraisal district, it doesn't look like there's a street adjacent.
We may have surrounding property. I don't have an answer to that. Is it landlocked? If it's on a road, we'll just utilize a road.
It doesn't face up to Hickory. If you look at it on the appraisal district map, there's property around all, on all sides of it.
We're actually, we'll find a way.
A264 suite something.
We actually are permitted around that tract of land with other surface owners. I don't know if it's fenced. I personally have not stepped foot out there, but typically, if we're granted access, we'll get access in.
And you do have the documentation with you that verifies that you do have those?
I can supply that, but it's a big tract of land that's all beneath one leasehold.
Yeah, but you do have the
Absolutely. We have to run mineral title on all these tracts of land that we go on by law. If we don't, we run seismic. It's a felony offense called mineral trespassing. So there's a lot of homework that we do on our end that most people don't understand that we do. But I can supply documentation. We, like which trucks? Pickup trucks? There's a chance, most likely we will not access that tract of land with the big vibe trucks. This is just to put the little shoebox sized geophones out. Typically we utilize a pickup truck coming in, the guys will hop out, walk on the property, set them down the grid pattern. 5 or 6 days later, go and pick them up, we're done. Not if it's in city limits, no ma'am.
I gotta remind the speaker, you're addressing the council and the mayor.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the council.
Can we get a list of what vehicles and how exactly you're going to get there?
I can supply that. Typically what happens first is we send out what's called hazard survey. Hazard survey are the guys that come out in advance and see what we've got to work with, and then we'll devise a plan from there.
I thought I looked it up, but after her, it doesn't not front Hickory?
I honestly haven't even taken a look.
Well, the 10 acres that we have that's in Prairie Point fronts Hickory. So that's the only 10-acre tract of land that we own. So, and I thought I looked it up, and I'm hearing other people say it's landlocked, and I didn't know that to be the case.
I looked at it on the appraisal district map that they had. The A264 suite, I believe is what it was.
Jody, do you have on your cell phone, do you have the map of the project?
This isn't, well, I guess I can look that up. Wise County CAD.
Most of the times to access a tract of land, if we have consent from surrounding landowners and there's not a fence, we just go from one property to another. We don't always have to go back to the street. So, but site specific, I can get that information.
Huh?
I believe I found it under City of Rome.
Right, I don't have the keyboard.
This is abstract A764, I believe. I don't have my readers on.
Well, can you move back so I can,
What, if we don't get approval, we don't have to get to this point. Garvin knows what we'll probably go to. It's called a TRO.
it fronts Hickory.
Okay. And what a TRO basically means is we're coming. It's called temporary restraining order. But we always like to work things out up front first.
So the top of this property is Hickory Road. So it fronts Hickory.
That would be our access point.
I think our biggest concern is that you are not going to bring the big truck out there and shake that piece of property.
If that's in the city limits, we don't have the rights to run seismic trucks in the city limits.
Okay. And so you're just going to have a pickup and it's going to go out there and put the sensor down. It'll be there for about a week and then you'll come and pick it up and.
We're done.
So I think that I saw that there was a deadline to accept your money that you offered. And because of timing of a city council meeting, it's a couple of days past that. Will you still write us the check?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I said, I think it was $1,000.
No.
I'm trying. No, but I just want to, take advantage of the money part. Obviously, we need it. So, I mean, So, but what he said, and that I've already been looking at this, and we really don't have a choice because of this particular mineral ownership. So, we just have to accept it and go on with it. Now they've reassured us that they're not going to take a big truck out there, and it's just going to be a pickup, and it's only going to be a sensor. So I don't think that we need to fight this because we can't win. So, but that being said, we still would like the money.
Absolutely.
All right.
I believe it was, what, $100?
I know. I tried.
By law, would have a Bedrock Energy leasehold and they are the client on this job, they're not required to pay anything except for actual damages. With it dries a bone out here, guy walking boxes out on the ground, that'd be very minimal, if any. So the $100 is, might buy some pizzas.
So do we need a motion? Is that what you're after? I make a motion we accept the offer of Dawson on that 10-acre property.
I second that.
I guess we got ayes.
Thank you, council. Appreciate it.
Okay. Guess it's at 7:35. We'll convene into executive session. Section 551071, consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or to seek advice from attorney. Newark and Dawson Geophysical. I don't have to read the others.
You're good. That's all we're
Okay.
going to tonight.
All right. And I guess we go here to the kitchen. Yeah. I don't want to run these people out in 100 degrees weather.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Okay. It's 7:47. Reconvene in your regular session, and I believe we're ready to adjourn. And I never can remember, do we need a motion or do I just
I
adjourn
make a
it?
motion that we adjourn.
Second? All right, we're out of here. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. It is 7:48.
Good job.
Hey.
Yeah. Good to see you. See you in 2 weeks.
There's Shayna.
Yes, ma'am.
And then